session organised by the Gender Transformative Research Methodologies community of practice. And today we'll be talking about opening the box, which is about exploring the Gender Transformative Research Methods Toolkit. My name's Arwen Bailey. I'm a knowledge sharing advisor at the Alliance of Biodiversity and CEAT, and I co-convene the CGIAR Gender Transformative Research Methodologies community of practice with about 6 other people. So just as we start, perhaps in the chat, you could put your name and where you're from so that we can see who's joining us today. Hi, Jessica. Hi, Anne. Sarah from Costa Rica. Julie, Michelle in USA. Ikrisat. Hello, Kavita. Charity, Victoria, Desalin. And Karen. Hi, Karen. Hello, Bermet in Kyrgyzstan. It's wonderful to see everybody coming from far and away, and a lot of interest around these tools. Okay. Can't go back. Right. So today we're going to open the toolbox. So this is a repository of gender transformative research methods, and we'll be talking about what those are, which have been developed over the last 18 months by researchers and practitioners around the world who are members of this community of practice. So at the link, the QR code bottom left, you can see the tools that are available. And on that site, there are actually 7 tools that have been developed and piloted. They all have a different focus. Some are piloted, some are prototypes. Today, we're going to be presenting 5 of these. And we hope to start forming learning groups around them so that when people use them, they can share their experiences in the coming months and years. So let's see how that goes. We're also going to tell you about some other tools, which are prototypes that have been developed to some extent, but you can still help to shape and develop those. So we'll be talking about those later. Okay, so maybe to start, we should get on the same page with even what are we talking about? What even is a gender transformative research methodology? So we have a little quiz for you. Which of these best defines a gender transformative research method? Is it A, a gender transformative research method aims for the research process itself to contribute to gender transformative change? B, it's a research method which aims to understand better gender transformative approaches? Or C, both of the above? So to join this tiny little quiz, you can either go to the QR code and click one of the answers, or you can go to slido.com and put that number 3384771. I see one person's gone in there already. Okay, 4 people in there. 7. There's 80 people online, so let's see if we can get a good number of you trying out our quiz. $14, $16. Okay. 26 people have braved the quiz. Let's have a look at your answers. Okay, so the majority are saying it's both of these answers, A and B, followed by about a third of people there saying that it's a method that aims for the research process itself to contribute to gender transformative change. And a small minority thinking it's a research methodology that aims to understand better gender transformative approaches. So, oh, sorry, this is where Slido's failing me and not revealing with a fanfare the correct answer. But the correct answer is actually A. So we're talking about a research methodology that aims for the research process itself to contribute to gender transformative change. So not so much about doing research into and exploring gender transformative approaches, more about how the research process could be one. So let me pass now to Kathy Rosal Farnworth, who's one of the co-conveners of this community, and she's a gender researcher who's been part of the community, leading it, and passionate about the transformative potential of research as a gender transformative method. So, Kathy, over to you. What are we talking about when we talk about GTRM?
Thank you very much for that warm welcome, and thank you everybody for joining. It's so exciting to see people from all around the world. There's a few words on the screen here, but I just wanted to talk about this a bit differently. And because today is really a storytelling session, and I started to think about that. So of course, many of us like reading a good book, and we love a good ending. So a good way of thinking about gender transformative research is to think about who is writing the story and who is creating the ending. How much power do the authors have to shape the plot? What roles do the characters in the story have? Are they passive people or are they energetic change makers? So the idea behind gender transformative research methods and research is that the people whose lives will be shaped and influenced by the research, they become co-authors in the research process. So the people we work with will shape the plot or co-shape the plot. They shape the process, they shape the objectives and goals, and they also shape the indicators that help to demonstrate whether their lives have changed or not, and especially in the way that their lives have changed in the way that they long for. So our contribution as researchers using these methods is to help create thinking and planning spaces. This is what gender transformative research methodologies are all about. Different methods to help with different questions, different priorities, to help with thinking and planning processes. So in this webinar, we're introducing the methods that the team has been working on for the past 18 months or so. We really hope you'll come to full method webinars throughout the year. We hope you're going to use some of these methods in your own work, and we invite you to share any methods that you're working on which you think are gender transformative. And just remember the quote at the bottom, the best change is the change you long for. And I think that's the ultimate goal of gender transformative research methodologies. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay, so before we start actually looking at the tools, I'd like to turn to Ojong Ba. Ojong's a gender researcher at the International Water Management Institute and another co-convener of this community. Ojong, I don't see you.
You're right here.
You're right there, okay, you pop out when you speak. So I wonder whether you can help us understand why anyone would want to or need to develop and use research methods that are gender transformative. So thinking about what Kathy was saying about the best change is the change you long for, could you give us an example from your research of where you've seen the process of doing research differently ending up with different results?
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Owen, and hi, everyone. I think from my experience, when I started doing some work at IMI, one of our project areas was in Malawi, and I approached research, of course, from a very familiar perspective, with structured surveys, having your quantitative metrics, but also clear standardized protocols. To me, I believed these methods would yield the best results. But as I spent time with local communities, I realized that the change I was really seeking, the kind of impact I longed, wasn't really coming through numbers alone, as numbers could not really tell me the story I wanted to get. But also what made it interesting was that while in the community having workshops in one of our sessions, an elderly man stood up and asked, "Do you know what it's like to hope for change, but never see it?" To me, that was like the moment, it was like an aha moment, and it was very pivotal. I realized I needed to listen differently. I needed to approach research not as an external investigator, but as a participant in the community's story. And so what we had to do was to shift our methods. We shifted our methods. Instead of doing only surveys, we had to hold listening circles before research design. Instead of rigid questionnaires, we had to invite people to share their dreams and frustrations openly, using images and themes as prompts for discussions. This participatory approach allowed us to express what change meant, but really allowed the communities to also hypothesize what they found as important to them. And so research wasn't just about what we went in to do, but about what the communities wanted to get out. The results were quite striking. Interventions designed through collaborative conversations were more relevant and embraced by the community. For example, when women spoke about their hopes for market access and conservation agriculture practices, research adapted to support these priorities directly. The community became partners in the research, not just as subjects, which is what we used to do in the past. And to me, this experience taught me that when research methods are shaped by the aspirations and voices of the community, when the change is the change people long for, outcomes become deeper and lasting. Malawi really opened my eyes. The best research doesn't really just measure change, but it needs to listen, it needs to nurture change, and it needs to help it grow from within. And so doing this research differently meant we needed to follow a co-design process. We needed to see problems through community lens, but also we needed to follow an ethical practice, which to us was an opportunity to create transparent space, but also shared responsibility between us as researchers and the communities. Yeah, I went over to you. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So you did give me a summary of your the main points, so that's on the screen right now. And the importance of this co-design process, as you were saying, what Kathy was saying about people becoming the authors of their own stories, which I think is such a lovely idea. Seeing problems through that community lens, so strengthening their agency and leadership. And then your point about ethical practice, about transparency and shared responsibility rather than going in, doing things, leaving, and perhaps not having the responsibility and transparency that we could do. Thank you very much, Ho Jong. So we would like this session, even though there's 100 people online and a lot for us to get through, we would like it to be interactive. So we've set up this easy retro board. You can get it from the QR code at the top, and maybe Mihin, if you can pop the link into the chat, that would be really useful. So we've got 3 main questions for you. The first one is if you've got any questions on what we've been talking about so far, about this whole concept of gender transformative research methods as a general concept. And then if you've got any questions about the 5 tools that we're about to present. And then more in a reflective sort of idea, what can we do as researchers if we want to design a research process that contributes to gender transformative change. So if you go into that Easy Retro board, you can put your questions and your reflections in there. Okay, so it's come the moment that I'm going to reveal the tools. So here we go. You can find the whole toolkit on this site. So you've got the link there on that QR code, and maybe Mahin, you can pop that link also into the chat so people can go directly. So people can read about them there, but we're going to talk about them today. So let me reveal the first tool that we're talking about today. And this one is about how can research become more community-driven? So I'm going back to Ojong, who developed a tool with GALS, so GALS for Gender Transformative Research. We're going to be presenting one of these tools every month. So Ojong will be kicking this off on the 28th of May, talking about GALS for GTR. Take it away, Ojong. You've got up to 3 minutes.
Thanks so much, Owen. This is really a pitch, 3 minutes. Okay, so yes, a couple of researchers came together and we decided to come up with a tool, GALS for Gender Transformative Research. GALS has always been there for, I think, over 2 decades as a tool, but we felt sometime around 2023 as a gender researcher, doing work in communities across multiple projects, we felt there was a need to revise the GALS tool. Something was actually missing. And what was missing? GALS, as it is currently used, lacked a research mandate. Power dynamics went unexplored. Communities participated, but they were not considered as co-researchers. And that was how we thought about the idea of developing GALS for gender transformative research. And when we developed this, our objective was simple: to bridge transformative facilitation with rigorous participatory research approaches. And some of the things we are seeing from our early pilots in Malawi and Zambia is that communities who have co-designed the process with us are picking gender equitable solutions. And in some cases, we do have women stepping into decision-making roles. I wouldn't want to let the cat out of the bag, but just to say we've taken a rigorous and robust approach in strengthening this tool. If you want to know more about GALS and how it can be applied and replicated across regions, please do join us on the 28th of May to know more about GALS and how you can best tailor this to your work. Thanks so much, Owen.
Fabulous. Thank you for telling us about that. And I hope people will join on the 28th of May to know more. Okay, so let's move on. Our second tool of the day is talking about how to integrate a gender transformative lens into the delivery of climate information services. So this is a tool that's been developed by Ana Maria Paez with Melissa Bonilla and Dilia Diaz. And it's a gender transformative adaptation of an existing tool, which is called PICSA, the Participatory Integrated Climate Services for Agriculture approach. And this is going to be held on the 25th of June. Ana Maria.
Right. Thank you, Arwen. Okay, so for those working with climate information services, those of you in the audience or in climate adaptation in general, we know that these services are key for farmer decision making and also for risk management, especially in context of high climate variability. But we also know that there are still significant gaps, barriers also that farmers face to access this information in a timely manner and in ways that they can understand it and actually act on it, use it to make decisions about the farming practices, about what crops to plant, and so on. So the PICSA methodology was developed to respond to these, try to address these barriers. And it's a very participatory, very farmer-centered methodology It has been widely applied in different geographies and contexts, and it has actually achieved important results in terms of facilitating that understanding of climate information, facilitating also use of climate information in many cases. But we've also seen that even in the sites where these positive impacts, are happening, we still see important gaps between access and use for women, for people with lower levels of education, and for indigenous communities. And the reason we think that these gaps is still persisting, is because the PICSA methodology, although farmer-centered, has some limitations from a gender and inclusion perspective. So also we see high levels of women participating in PICSA workshops. We observe that these women might not be able to act on the information received due to a number of reasons, including limited decision-making power. So what we did was working on a revision of the methodology, and we were faced with also not adding a significant change or a lot of extra steps, because this is already a long methodology that requires like a long-term engagement, a number of workshops already. It's quite resource and time intense. So we needed to do something that will tweak certain steps and that will not add a lot of effort and cost to the application of the methodology. We focused on two main things: integrating gender and social consideration in the selection of options, facilitating reflection about the distribution of resources and tasks and benefits, and also making that part of the decision about the options that farmers will use. And also importantly, we explore farmers' traditional knowledge regarding weather and climate, and work out ways to articulate that knowledge, that traditional knowledge, with historical climate information and forecasts, because that was also something that was missing in the initial methodology, although some practitioners have been trying to integrate it in it. So we did all this also as part of a revamp of the methodology, of a new toolkit of the methodology that was being produced, and we are now on the process. We managed to pilot part of it, some of the new steps that we proposed, but we still need to pilot the whole set of adaptations we did. But if you come to the webinar, you will find out about those tweaks and those changes that we did, the challenges that we face, and how that first pilot went.
Thank you very much indeed, Ana Maria. So come along to that one in June if you're interested in the Gender Transformative PICSA. Right. So moving on, the third tool that we'd like you to know about is talking about, especially in value chain settings, how can we do better targeting in agri-food systems research for more gender transformative results? So this is a tool developed by Fernanda Soto, who's a gender researcher in Central America. And it's been developed by very many people, and it's been piloted. And it's called Typologies for Transformation. So, Fernando, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. This was a methodology that was developed in collaboration with two CGIAR initiatives that now are science programs. And we share a common goal, which was to make value chains more inclusive for women in all their diversity. So as we started working, what we saw is that companies and other development actors show a strong commitment to gender equality, but they lacked a clear picture of who the women in these value chains were. And so that actually, as a result, that led to interventions that were too broad and based on assumptions. So on the ground, what we saw was that these interventions were designed for women as a group. And in reality, there were many differences among them that were shaped by power inequalities. Some women more than others were consistently left outside of the frame, and actions therefore were less effective. So that made us think that we needed a different way of seeing women in value chains. We needed something that helped us to see who were participating and how their realities differ. And that led to the development of the methodology. So what the methodology does is it helps us shift how we think about women, from seeing them as a single group to understanding their diverse experiences within value chains. But it also helps us to shift how we think about inclusion, from asking how to include women to asking who are the women who are left out, what are the specific barriers they face, and how, what are the particular opportunities, or what are the opportunities that actually can help them, or they can actually have. So that's basically the summary of what we did. We would like to share more about the methodology and what we have been doing in practice here in Central America and in other places as well in the webinar in July. So please, you're very welcome to join us. It would be great to have you there.
Thank you so much, Fernanda. Okay, just a reminder to everybody that if you do have any questions, there's the Easy Retro board. You can put your questions in there, and any thoughts about how to, what we can do differently as gender researchers, probably getting some ideas from these little snippets that we've got. So the next tool is in dressing. How we understand local gender norms when we want to support gender transformative change. Now, this is a tool that's been developed a few times. So it's been developed already by Kathy and Anne Rietveld, but then it's been adopted and adapted also in the Americas with Ana Maria and Fanny and Matteo, who are all gender researchers at the Alliance of Biodiversity and CIAT. Matteo, over to you.
Thank you, Awen. Hello, everyone. I'm going to talk about the GenZona tool, which means for gender and social norms assessment. This tool is crucial because it makes gender norms visible, so they can be discussed, critiqued, and if desired by community or group members, it also can be challenged and changed. So in our experience, we tested the GenZona tool as part of our work in the municipality of Cumbal, department of Nariño, Colombia, within the Be Real project. You can see in the slide some examples of the gender norms at the different levels that we tried and that we tested. And actually, we had a very positive experience piloting the tool. However, we felt that some of the norms proposed in the original model were not entirely appropriate for our fieldwork context, considering the specific conditions of the Cumbal municipality. That's why we made some adjustments to the original set of norms, and this learning highlights two important issues. First, the importance of context-based informed research, where methodologies cannot be applied as general or predetermined tools without prior fieldwork that identifies the priorities and needs of different populations. But second, it also highlights the flexibility of the GenZona tool, which can be adapted for different contexts. So that's kind of a brief pitching of what our experience was applying the tool. To learn more about the results and findings of our research in the context of Colombia, please join us for our sessions in October. Thank you very much, and back to you, Awen.
Thank you. That's a long time to wait, but we will have to wait. But in the meantime, people can read the tool, which is in the link that Ms. Maheen sent. And also, I think this is such a good example of the kinds of things that we're wanting to do with all of these tools, testing them and adapting them to different contexts, and then sharing those experiences. So thank you for giving that example. Okay, so of the tools which we're presenting today, there's just one more to go. So this tool looks at how bundling socio-technical innovations can contribute to gender transformative change in agri-food systems. So this tool has been developed by Eileen and Chanji, Desalien and Cosmos at the Alliance of Biodiversity and CEAT. And it's gender transformative socio-technical innovation bundles, much more easily pronounced as GT-STIBs. So Eileen, are you going to tell us about GT-STIBs?
Yeah, thank you so much, Arwen, and greetings to everyone. So we have a lot of technology. I think
Eileen,
in the
we don't
alone.
see. Sorry, we don't see. Have you got your video on?
Yeah,
Hey,
sorry.
we see you.
Yes. So in the CJ, we have a lot of technologies. And if you go to the national partners, also a lot of technologies. But often what we see is there's not so much adoption happening. But also then we're not seeing good outcomes coming from these technologies. And working within the HAPLUS initiatives, moving now to programs, what we realized was that there was a missing gap. So we either found women and youths who were not invited to co-design these tools, who in some cases, when invited, did not have a voice. Another thing we realized was the technology tools focused only on the product itself, but did not look at the people that were actually going to use the technologies. So yeah, we're talking of women, we're talking of youth, a critical insight. We're talking of marginalized groups as well. And so what we did was we worked with communities to be able to develop bundles that actually work for them, that fit into the social realities where they are and the experiences that they have. And we are seeing good, products coming from that. Farmers are actually co-designers, co-researchers, co-implementators in the field. And we're seeing good benefits, especially when we talk of resilience, when we look at food security, we have less food secured months, we have more women making decisions at home. We actually have, sort of like adapting more to the shocks, absorbing the shocks, especially now with the climate changing everywhere. So please, if you want to learn more on how to not think only of the technologies, but bring the social, the policy enabling environment. Join us in December before the Christmas holidays. Come with a cup of coffee and some cookies to enjoy with us. Thank you. Arwen, back to you.
Thank you, Eileen. Yes, we have to wait till December. We would have them every day, but we have to stagger them, unfortunately. So somebody has to be December. Thank you for taking that on. So we have seen these little bites of the tools that we would like to we would like you to join us to develop and pilot and learn about. So let me close the toolbox. And if you're interested in exploring with us, can we ask you on the left-hand side, you probably have this link already because you're here, but that's the link to this Zoom series, and that will put all of these appointments in your calendar. And the other QR code is a kind of email listserv, a D group, where we can exchange experiences, papers, questions, workshops, anything we like together on that listserv. So I'll just give you a second in case you're finding your telephone. Okay. And Mahin, will you pop those two links anyway into the chat in case anybody couldn't find their phone in time? Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so the tools that or the research methods that we've just presented, they're a little bit more developed. I mean, every research method's in a different state of progression from being an idea to being fully piloted, published, case studies, and adopted by the whole world. We would like to tell you also about some research methods which are more embryonic. And for these, we're anticipating having a closed group of people. So rather than a webinar, a little learning group who can get together, and the person or people developing these methods can tell you how far they've got, how far they've tried it, where they've used it in the field. And together as a group, we can shape and develop these methods, using your own experiences, your own knowledge, and and then to share those experiences amongst us. So the ones that we have in this set, so as I said, we're looking for piloters. The dates are set, but they need to be confirmed. So we have them, it's just that we haven't 100% confirmed them yet. So the first one is a methodology for understanding and analysing gender transformations in development planning, called GSTAR Plan, which has been developed by Charity Osei Ponce of the International Water Management Institute with a group of other researchers, and probably more. In September, Megajit, I'm not attempting your surname today, Megajit, with Sonali, they developed a tool, vision, voice, and validation for women's collectives and community decision-making processes. So join them to help them to think through, or with Megajit to help him think through how to develop and shape that method so it can be really useful for women's collectives. And then if you're familiar with Q methodology is actually a gender-blind methodology, but quite powerful. So how can we adapt and use it with a gender-transformative intention? So that's being developed by Maria Claudia Tristan and Rietveld. And then waiting till next year in January, Julie Newton will be developing a research method on reflexive dialogues, but we may be using some of those as a method during the year anyway, as we do some reflection sessions. So speaking of that, let me pass to Julie Newton, who is another one of our co-conveners in the many co-conveners of this community of practice. And she's a gender researcher at KIT and also working very closely with CGIAR. Julie.
Right. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Perfectly.
Great. So back to storytelling mode. We started with this phrase, the best change is the one you long for. So I want to fast forward you in time in a few years in dreaming mode. And the headline is that we've cracked it. Gender transformative research methods are part of the norm in the institutions that we work with. And why is that? That's because you're part of this collective of learning. We're learning in a safe space about how we're using these different methods. We're also reflecting on the impact on the type of gender knowledge that we're generating. We're reflecting on our own roles and positionality and how we're using these methods. And also importantly, we're reflecting on how we're institutionalizing these methods in how we work. And why is that important? Because we were talking earlier about how important this critical reflection is in how we do our work. So our ask to you is we would love to take you along, invite you to this collective learning space. If you're interested in using some of the tools that are already used, but the ones that are to be piloted, but also you might have some other tools that you're working on that might be interesting for this group. So we'd love to invite you along on the journey. So if we go to the next slide. This is another QR code, which if you can scan now, but it will also come in the chat or another method to indicate your interest. Yeah, that's it from me. Am I missing anything from the others?
Sounded good to me. So in this form, we're collecting two things. One is if you've got a gender transformative research method that you would like to develop and share with the group, you can put some information about it here. And the other one is if you'd like to be invited to those small groups, talking about those, actually, maybe I should just go back a couple of slides, talking about these methods, then let us know and we will invite you to those sessions. Okay. Mahin, have you popped those in the chat so I can leave the QR code?
Sure, one more.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Jessica, I have not been keeping an eye on the Easy Retro board because I've been very busy changing slides and wondering who's speaking next. So can I invite you, please, just to share your screen maybe and share the questions, or have a look at the Easy Retro and tell us what questions that we have.
Yeah, sure.
We've got about 10 to 15 minutes for questions, so we don't have to hurry through.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I don't have access to share my screen, but I can read out some of the questions for you if you'd like.
Okay, in the meantime, I think Nathan's going to give you access to share your screen.
Great. Okay.
All good.
Okay, perfect. Let me share my screen. So I think everyone can see the questions that have come in now. So maybe I'll give you a few moments to read the questions, because I think it would be great if some of our presenters perhaps picked a question that they would like to answer that feels kind of relevant to their thinking and work. Or maybe, Arwen, you can start us off. We have obviously some general ones and then some a bit more specific to some of the tools.
So I would invite actually all of the research method developers. So that's everybody who's online. That's Anne or John, Charity, Anna Maria, just to have a look at the questions as GTRMs as a concept and pick one that you find interesting. Let's start.
We have one that has like 3 thumbs up. Maybe that's a good place to start,
Okay.
which is many partners and even community organizations feel GTRMs have been developed for years without this label. How can we highlight GTRM's added value? So that has 3 upvotes.
Great question. So shall I send that to you, Julie, as a first stop?
Arwen, and just for you to
Yes,
know,
Mahin.
there's a question in the Q&A from
Ah.
Andrea Sanchez. Andrea, we also encourage you to post the questions in the retroboard. However, just for your visibility, Arwen, there's one question in the Q&A.
Okay,
in
thank
Zoom.
you. Lovely.
So on this one, can you hear me again?
Yes.
Yeah, this is a great question. So how do we acknowledge the work that's already been done and look at the label? And I think that's such an important, again, question that we as a collective should reflect on. What do we mean by the key characteristics of the methodologies? And having that aligned understanding is important. And I think that indeed there are a lot of work that's already been done, which could be categorized at this. So I think having that overview is important. So I would encourage, again, partners, community organizations, the ones that you know about, to get in touch and we have a look at this. So what do the others think?
Oh, and I think I can come in there. So
Yes,
I also
Eileen.
feel the other value is, why do we have to do gender transformative research if we can do gender sensitive or gender responsive? And I think there we're really looking at changing systems. So it's not about just participation or who is benefiting, but how do we have institutions and systems that actually address those issues, where we're looking at the root causes of it. So if we're able to show how changing a root cause of a problem, which might be an institution which might actually be at the household level, community level, or micro level, if I put it that way. And we're seeing benefits, which is food security, or we're seeing benefits where we're reducing hunger, we're seeing benefits where we're increasing resilience. I think that's the added value. Because if we look at what donors are focusing on now, it's literally what's happening to food and nutrition security, what's happening to resilience, especially with the changing climate. So if we can show how gender transformative research methodologies that we have are able to answer those questions, or are able to be a solution to some of those problems, I think that's where the added value is. Thank you. I went back to you.
Thank you.
Arwen, I can respond also on a question if you want me to.
Yes, if you'd like to, are you picking one of the green questions?
Yes, so I like the question which says, how do you really ensure GTRM tools are used in ways that actually challenge power relations rather than being applied in a more gender responsive way? And I think that's a very relevant question. And one, well, the answer is that we cannot ensure that GTRM tools are used in ways that actually challenge power relations, even, if we develop amazing tools, we cannot control how they are used. But I think this is indeed a very real risk, and it's because we are working in teams with a lot of different people, and not everyone is in the same state of mind, has the same experience, the same ideas, and even really understands what we are trying to achieve with these GTRM tools, right? So I think if teams are choosing to apply or to use and adopt these tools, that it's very important that the people in these teams, that at the very least they discuss together and they exchange what is really meant to that, and they ensure for themselves. So I think the responsibility is really with the team that is going to use this, right? That everyone within that team understands what is really meant with this, and has the same ideas about this. And I think that is a prerequisite if you really want to ensure that the GTRM, the methods that we have developed, are really used as, aiming for gender transformative change, and not being gender responsive or gender sensitive. And that also relates to the other question, which says a lot of research is done in collaboration with implementing partners, blah, blah, blah. Would you consider this as a potential opportunity? Are you open to expanding your scope of partners? Well, I think definitely in some of these tools, they are also not only considering community partners, but they actually already have a wider scope. But I think if relevant in the specific context in which you work, yes, we do need to include those partners as well. But you might also need additional tools to then ensure that all these partners and team members understand well and have the same ideas about how to implement this research, because that is not a guarantee. Anyway, let me stop there.
Thank you, Anne. I'm going to go to Andrea Sanchez's question, her middle question, which is in the Q&A, and read it out. So get ready for this one. And then we'll go into the questions about the specific tools. So Andrea asks, in your experience, so I'm opening this to everybody, are gender transformative research methods most effective when embedded in interventions that explicitly aim for gender transformative outcomes? Or can they also be meaningfully applied in projects where gender is not a central focus in order to strengthen the gender dimension? So who wants to answer that one?
Yeah, Arwen, I can come in and maybe answer it from one side, and someone else can do the other side. So definitely you can introduce this in a project that did not have gender as the core element. And that's what we did exactly in Kenya. So in Kenya, there was what they call the mother-baby demo. When the mother demo, they're bringing different farmers to learn different, technologies and agricultural practices. So how do you plant in lines? How do you do sort of like 3 lines of maize or 2 lines of beans? So everything was really about the technology and then also the technical part of it, which is capacity building and skill building. And what we realized was even though farmers had that, it was difficult for them to take those technologies from the mother baby demo to from the mother demo to the baby demo. And that's because we had not thought of the social innovations behind it. So where you have men making decisions and women not making decisions, getting the wrong people to the mother demo would mean that the technologies are not moving. Where you're not considering the social and economic capabilities of the farmers, and their reality also means that those technologies in most cases might not even be moving. So what we did in that project was we brought in the social innovations, but to make sure that we even bring in the social innovations that are needed by the farmers, we had this co-development and co-design process, where farmers came and said, maize we love, beans we love, and then they started asking, can we also have vegetable, which was never part of the project? Can we have forage? Because we're also keeping animals. And then also they're looking at the technologies and saying, this is more complex, this is better. You've not thought of this other crop, climate is coming, maize is good, but can we have something else like sorghum or millet relating to the diets that already exist? So this is just answering part of your question, where gender wasn't, sort of like the core aim of the project, but we were able to bring in these gender transformative methods by, bringing in these social innovations. I think I can pass it back, Arwen, to you, and then maybe our colleague can also come in.
I can come in.
Go ahead.
But it's from the same side, sorry. But I just want to, I just very, very briefly, when we developed the Gen-Sonar tool, we worked with the International Water Management Institute and People's Democratic Republic, Laos. And that was a hydrological project. It was about managing a large lake and the developing management committees and so on, but they wanted to kind of work towards more gender transformative outcomes. So that's where we first piloted the Gen-Sonar tool. But we developed that so that we then implemented the GALs as a kind of development initiative on top of that, because somebody asked about linking tools together. And then we're now in the process, the Lao team and ourselves, engaging in reflexive practice. We're trying to think about, did power relations really change in that project as a consequence of that intervention? So we coupled 3 methods together, as it were.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay.
Arwen,
Yes, go ahead.
I wanted to come in. There's a question around, do any of the tools address GBV?
Yes.
And I wanted to talk a little bit on that. Yes, so for the girls too, when we went in, we were actually following a process or a project that had been in the country for over 18 years. And this was around conservation agriculture, helping farmers to adopt it as a climate smart agriculture practice. But over time, mostly the women farmers that adopted conservation agriculture, improved their use, but it led to something else. It led to gender-based violence because they became a threat in their homes. They became a threat to their husbands. They became a threat to their family members. It was also seen as, bruising the ego of men. And so in most cases, there was an increase in gender-based violence. And the same women who had adopted these technologies or innovation had to drop out because it brought more challenges than they had anticipated. And so when we went in with girls, that was one of the angles. How can we address some of these unintended consequences, with GBV being one of them, in order for women and other vulnerable groups to not, become or not experience the negative outcomes for innovation adoption. And so the girls was really, designed in that space of creating like safe spaces for both women and men to co-create solutions, but also to just think through how asset sharing, resource sharing, all of those things can either impact or lead to unintended consequences for those who are interested in adopting certain technologies or innovation. But just to say, yes, GAUS has a big focus on that. And what we've done is really to come in with research approaches that can help you measure and track those changes over time. And we really came in with a robust Melia, which we added a component on adjustment and adaptation. So that allows communities, households, and various practitioners, not just to track monitoring and evaluation, but also to be able to say, where do we need to make adjustments that are coming through for this process? So yes, I just wanted to respond to that question.
Thank you very much for doing that, Ojong, and there'll be more people coming to your session in May, I'm sure, on the back of that. So well done, good pitch. We do have to wrap up in a few moments. So can we just move to the red questions? I think Kathy's already talked to the one about the tools being used complementarily. Shall we go in, well, maybe the bottom one, because can we track people? Can we track who is using the tools and how? Also, because this may be useful to get donor support, especially those interested in specific geographies. Any of the co-conveners like to speak to the idea about tracking the tools and how?
Well, Arwen, I think you could probably also say something about this, but this is definitely something that we would want to do. And we're hoping to organize a workshop around this later this year. And one of the ideas is also that we hope that users of these tools, at least some of the users, will also provide feedback, and that we have a place where we can share, where we share the tools, but where we can also share different versions, different adaptations, different experiences with the tools, so that these tools, they're not ready now, right? They can be adopted in many different ways, and that future users can also learn from these different experiences that people had. So that is one thing, more into development or further development, but also, yes, we are thinking about ways to also look maybe more at impact, but we have not, at least as far as I know, we have not developed that yet.
But we will. So, Julie, you've got your hand up.
Yeah,
but we've got 2 more minutes,
okay,
and we need to do some more slides.
That's the purpose of the learning agenda. So the form that we've sent out has reached out to all of you if you're interested in being part of that. And that's part of that learning group will be about what you just said, Anne.
Exactly. So let's just put the link to the form back in the chat in case anybody missed it. I'm just going to highlight the 2 comments in purple. So some ideas about what we can do differently in our research, taking time or claiming time, being flexible, perseverance, big smile, absolutely. And working with fully inclusive approaches that develop agency and decision-making with the participants so they take ownership and responsibility for the work. And we'll be carrying on going back to these themes over the next, over this coming year. Okay, it's almost time to wrap up. So let me just share my screen one last time with everybody, if Zoom will obey me. So while we have you here, this Gender-Transformative Research Methodologies Community of Practice has 2 strands this year. We also have a sister series, which is Gender Transformation for Business Sense. So just while we have your attention, we would like to invite you to that. That will be starting next month in May. You can see the tentative dates and the tentative things that will be covered, so keep an eye open for that. From my part, it just remains for me to thank everybody who came, everybody who's interested in these research methods, anybody who thinks they might want to have a go, try them out and be part of this learning community. You can see the dates here. We're starting next month in May with, I've put a spelling mistake in there, but it's actually GALS for GTR. The green ones are the ones where we'll be having webinars. If you want to be part of the orange ones, then please put your details in the form. So that's it from me. And thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. We will be sharing a recording with everybody.